Aloha mai kākou o wā o Kumu Maile na ehu coming to you from Kekauleleanae'ole na Moloka'i for Heluhelu and Mele. We're going to read and sing. The puke that I chose to share today is Kohala Kuamo'o, Naiole's race to save a king. And ua Kekauleleanae'ole na Kekauleleanae'ole Kawai'ae'a, kahaki'i ia na Aaron Kawai'ae'a. And the mo'olelo was done by Walter and Luana Kawai'ae'a. E heluhelu kākou. If we look at this first au or this first page, you'll see a map of the northern part of Hawaii Island. And these are the different locations or places, wahi, that will be visited during this story. Now let's read the different names of the places that we will visit. From the very top, Kokoiki. Mai ka'i e ho'opili mai, repeat after me. Pu'umauna kea. Ho'ea. Hawi. Honomaka'u. Kapa'au. Halaula. Halawa. Makapala. Pololu. And Awini. E heluhelu kākou. Kohala Kuamo'o. Okay, class, said my homeroom teacher. Today's assignment is to learn about your inoa, or name. It has been said that the most prized possession of any Hawaiian is his inoa. Kumu told us that a name is more treasured than a woven mat, a man's malo, or even a chief's ahu'ula made of the finest feathers. When you go home today, she said, ask your ohana about how you receive your inoa and why it's important to you. Just then, the bell rang. Remember, your homework is due tomorrow. As I stepped through the doorway at home, Grandpa was playing his ukulele. I got right to my homework. Can you tell me about my name? I asked. I know Uncle Kay gave it to me, but what does it mean? Is there a story behind it? Aye, there is, said Grandpa. Come, sit with me. Let's travel back in time to the days of your great ancestors, Kaha'opulani and Chief Nae'ole. Your name, Kekauleleanae'ole, means the flight of Nae'ole, Grandpa said. Nae'ole was a chief of Kohala on Hawaii Island. His name, Nae'ole, means without shortness of breath, and he was known as a great runner. As I listened to this exciting story, I could feel myself being transported back to a historic time and place, to Kapakai, Kokoiki, Kohala, where Kamehameha the Great was born. It was a stormy night in the month of Ikua, during the reign of Alapa'inui. A chiefess of Hawaii, Kekuiapoiwa, gave birth to a baby boy. It was foretold by a kahuna that this keiki would become a warrior king and unite the Hawaiian Islands. Signs accompanied the ali'i's birth: crashing waves, peals of thunder, forked lightning, heavy winds, and torrential rains. A great star with a tail of white fire streaked across the heavens. The powerful Alapa'inui and other chiefs of Hawaii Island heard of this prophecy and were not pleased. This child could prove their downfall. Death for the newborn would be the only solution. But among other chiefs, another plan was made to save the newborn. Immediately after the birth, Nae'ole, the great chief of the Halawa district, would take the baby and flee into the hills. He would then deliver the babe safely to Kaha'opulani, his half-sister and first cousin to Chiefess Kekuiapoiwa. So, on that stormy night, Kamehameha was born. Nae'ole took the newborn wrapped in soft kapa cloth and began the race to save a king. Nae'ole's destination was Awini. Running with careful speed, he crossed rugged trails, dense forests, swollen rivers, and steep valleys To avoid being captured by Alapa'i's men, Nae'ole hid in caves and received help from people in different villages along the way. As Nae'ole began the trek, he reached Pu'umaunakea, a small hill near Mo'okiniheau. He hid there until it was safe and then continued to the first village, Ho'ea, which meant to arrive. The people of Ho'ea were waiting anxiously for this blessing to come. They provided Nae'ole with safe shelter for a brief moment, then sent him and the babe on their way. Nae'ole's next stop was Hawi, a village name meaning to suffer of famine. Because there was no wet nurse, the infant began to cry from hunger. Back to Kokoiki, a worried mother, Chiefess Kekuiapoiwa, awaited news of her newborn son. By this time, Alapa'i's warriors discovered that the baby had been taken. They gathered their forces, searched the surrounding area, and arrived at Hawi, only to find that Nae'ole and the child were already gone. The raging storm made their search nearly impossible. Chief Nae'ole took refuge near Honomaka'u, an area named for seeking shelter from fear. He hid in a place sheltered by trees. The rain and muddy trails made it difficult to continue, but Nae'ole kept going. As dawn approached, Nae'ole came to the village of Kapa'au, meaning the place where Kapa went swimming. The streams were swollen because of the heavy rain. When Nae'ole crossed the swirling river, the baby's kapa got drenched and lost in the current. Nae'ole then stopped at Halaula, a place named for the severe punishment Alapa'i's warriors would face if they didn't find the child. Not fulfilling the king's orders was considered a hala, or a sin, that would cost the men their ula, or blood. Leaving Halaula, Nae'ole reached his lands, Halava. There he was safe to rest and catch his breath among his own people. The baby was doing well and had enough breath and strength in him to continue the journey, hence the name Halava, meaning enough breath. From there, Nae'ole ran to the village of Makapala, named after the warriors' futile attempts to find a newborn. As the men became weary and desperate, their eyes became pala, swollen and ripe like red hala. Nae'ole kept running until he reached Pololu Valley. Avini was still in the distance. He checked to see if Alapa'i's men were near. The trek down into the valley was dangerous, but the tireless Nae'ole had vowed to complete this important mission, so he ran toward his final destination. After traveling day and night through miles of rugged mountains and deep valleys, Nae'ole and the baby Kamehameha finally reached Avini. Nae'ole's half-sister, Kaha'opulani, was waiting for them. She quickly nursed and hid the newborn. As the baby slept, Alapa'i's warriors arrived and saw Kaha'opulani with her own baby girl. Dejected, the warriors left. The race to save a king was over. Nae'ole had fulfilled his kuleana, and the infant Kamehameha was safe. And so your name, Kekauleleanae'ole, said Grandpa, is to remind you of Nae'ole's flight. If not for the courage and devotion of your Kohala ancestors, the life of Kamehameha the Great would have ended at birth. Mahalo, Grandpa, for telling me about my inoa, I said. I'm going to write this all down for my homework. I think my Kumu will like it. Aye, he said. Grandma will help you. Your name carries our family mo'olelo, our stories, our most valuable possessions. Other families also have their own mo'olelo. We keep the stories alive so we can live worthy of our great ancestors' respect. Are there more mo'olelo? I asked. Aye, Grandpa answered. There are more mo'olelo, and those stories are for another time. Pipi Poloka'au. This book is so beautifully written, and it's a bilingual book. So be sure to check out the bilingual version where I will read it in Olelo Hawaii. And I mahalo ka ohana Kawai'ae'a, who are the descendants of Nai'ole himself, for sharing their mo'olelo about their ohana's inoa and their great, rich history of saving a king. Let's do a mele. This is a mele inoa. Mele inoa is a chant that is done to honor the name and usually for ali'i. And this mele is for Kamehameha. E hele mai, e mele kako. Aloha mai kako. It is now time to mele, time to sing. And this particular mele or song is a mele inoa in honor of Kamehameha. And it is titled Hanau Keali'i. I want you to follow along with me. And remember, you can always press repeat or pause and practice as much as you need to. Makaukou? Hanau keali'i ke kuia poiwa ina kolo kalani. Ivelehu kamalama I kulia I lalapa maloko ai na ke ai. Kokohi ke maloko ila ila. Hanau kalani nui meha meha. Ke ho'oeli o ke kapu. Ke puliko liko o kakapu. Ina maloko mai o aina ke a I eve eve ali'i I lalapa. Maloko o ke kuia poiwa o kamano nui kapu lala ke ai. O ke ali'i o ka pali nui ki e o malukalani. He kahana awini e hi'i ana ia kalani nui meha meha me he hulu nenela kahaki manawa. O ka pali e kune he uli huna malu no pai ea. Ka hula ana na awini I hoa o ana me ke ahialaka. Ke o